Welcome to Kubernetes SIG Apps for Monday, April 15th, 2019. Let me get started by sharing the meeting minutes. We have a light agenda today. There's the meeting minutes and everything. It's for the 15th. We don't have any announcements. Does anyone have anything that needs to be announced or otherwise shared? No, fantastic. We don't have a demo today, so we can jump right into the discussion topics. We're pretty light on discussion topics. If you had anything, please feel free to stick it into the open discussions. But otherwise, we'll start going right through these. The first one that I wanted to share is 1.15 is now under development, and just the same as with 1.14, every change, everything that needs to go in needs to land through a CAP. They just started at the end of last week working on the list of issues that get tracked. You can actually see there's a link there to the V115 milestone list. This is the list of changes or other things that are going in that they've accounted for so far. Again, everything needs a CAP, and anything that's going into 1.15 needs a tracking issue in addition to that CAP in order for it to land. So if we had anything, and I know I've been out the last couple of weeks, but I know there were some things that were talked about and merged. So such as stateful set, max, unavailable. If any of that work is going to land in 1.15, we need to get a CAP and get it on the board and tracked.
Yeah, for max unavailable, I added a tracking issue for it, and I'm going to make a PR to get it to implementable.
Fantastic. That's what I like to hear. We'll also need a tracking issue, and if we want to get it into 1.15, we'll need to get it marked as tracked by the enhancements person. Let me pull up who that is real quick. It's in all the enhancements and release team folks are in the release team folder, or the release team repo.
Mike, were you trying to get that in for 1.15, or do you want to get that in for 1.15?
Sorry, repeat that.
Do you want to get it in for 1.15?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to try for it. I think the main thing is to get the proposal in a state where it's marked as implementable. Okay. So I'll work on it.
All right, just let me know. I'll probably shadow API review. I'll get an API reviewer across it for you. And it seems reasonable to try to go for 1.15.
Sounds good, cool.
All right, and in order to get, once the tracking issue is in, the release team members are there. This falls under Kendrick, who's handling enhancements to make sure it gets tracked and released, because if it's not tracked and if it's not handled, they won't let it in, or that'll be a problem. So I'll add this to the meeting minutes.
Do we have a rough timeline on when would be the code freeze for 1.15 now?
Sure, just a sec, I'll pull that up. Yes, everything when it comes to timeline and members is tracked in under the Kubernetes org. There's a SIG release repository, and they've got templates and everything. And so if you go look, I'll drop another link in here. This has the entire timeline for every week and every single thing of what's going on with 1.15. So like the enhancements freeze is April, is that right? April 30th? Yeah, April 30th. Is the enhancements freeze. Then the code freeze is May 30th, a month later.
Got it, yeah, I can see it, yeah, thanks.
Yep. All right. Yeah, and then they really just got started on it. It was the end of last week that the board got filled out, and there were shadows to the enhancements lead. Before that, none of that was even filled in. So they're really getting moving on this. So we got about 15 days left on getting all the enhancements filed in and tracked. All right, that's all I wanted to share on CAPs. I wanted to make sure we knew where we were at and what it would take for 1.15 for everything we wanted to get in. Is there anything on CAPs anybody wanted to chat about, or 1.15? Perfect. The next couple things I had was a couple of bits of house cleaning. Oh,
Wait,
yeah.
Matt, I had a quick question for if he's here. Joseph, for the sidecar cap, do you want to try to target that for 115, or do you think it's more realistic to hit 116?
Yeah, so I'm looking at trying to get for a 115 at the moment. I mean, in terms of we've got good like proof of concept already, so there's like a fair amount of coding work's been done. The main thing that needs finalizing is the API. We still haven't decided that. I raised a PR the other day. Tim Hockin had
the API issues. Yeah, I saw.
Yeah, Tim Hockin had a look and seemed generally okay with it. There was a suggestion to move it into the already existing lifecycle struct, where like a post-stop, pre-stop, where those hooks are already defined. So it'd be like a container, then you got lifecycle type sidecar or something like that is what it's currently looking like. So if that gets approved, and then we just need a test plan, I think, and then that should be pretty much everything in terms of the caps, in terms of making it implementable. So yeah, I guess that's what needs to be done, and then just finishing up the code and testing and whatnot.
Okay, so I mean, like, I think it's realistic to target 115 if that's what you want to do, or you can just spend the time getting it ready to go in 115 and target 116 and have like kind of a zero stress rollout for releasing it as alpha in 116. Totally up to you. If you want to go 115, you can always slide the milestone to 116 later, if that's what you decide to do. If you want to do 115, it would be opening up the tracking issue now would be a good idea.
Yeah, we've already got the tracking issue, and they've marked it as 115 and whatnot.
Okay, cool.
Mutable PDBs, is that something we should try to get for 115, and that should have a cap?
I think mutable PDB is acceptable as part of the GA cap. So if we merge that, that's fine. And then relaxing, it's not a feature per se, right? It's more modification to an existing API to relax immutability. So I think that's fine too, because we're not really changing the API. And the question would be, if we want to remove min available, do we do that? If we did that, we'd probably have to do a V1 beta too.
I think there might be use cases where that is in use. When I looked at Kubeflow, they seem to be using it for something. So I need to.
Well, just because they're using it doesn't mean they should. But
that might be true.
But I mean, like, I'm not like saying we shouldn't keep it. I don't see anybody feeling strongly one way or the other. So we can just keep it. And then if we do that, then we just have to promote to GA kind of wholesale as soon as the scale sub resource stuff is implemented.
Yeah, so the scale sub resource, Jordan asked for a cap on that one. So, and if you want to get both that and mutable PDBs into 115 and then we go GA 116, is that acceptable to do it all in one cap then, or should we split it up?
If you want to cap on the scale sub resource, you could split it up if you want to. Whatever you think is easier. Sometimes for smaller functionality, it's easier to get the features merged.
Yeah.
If you use smaller caps, and then we do that, that gets agreed. If we get those into 115 in V1 beta 1, we could go to GA with it. And
yep, sounds good.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Anything else with caps or 115? Okay, then let's move on to a couple of bits of house cleaning we have. I've been looking over the SIG Apps thing, and two things jumped out at me. One is that our contributing guide in the Kubernetes community repo in SIG Apps, there is a contributing guide. This is one of the things that SIG Contrib-X wanted us to have, and it is woefully out of date, such as it still includes Helm. What we probably need to do is just rewrite it to include workloads, application, and examples, and just include those with some honest pointers on how somebody gets started. It's all woefully out of date. Is there anybody who wanted to take a shot at starting to write this?
I can take a whack at it, but there's another PR I want to get through first. We talked about this last week. The first thing that we wanted to kind of clean up was not just the contributing guidelines, but we wanted to get our owners files in better shape and start using owners aliases, and then update the reviewers and approvers for the APIs. And the discussion was around, we think that will make the contributing experience in terms of like making it more clear what you need to do to get to be a reviewer and how you can go from reviewer to approver a bit more clear. And then there are some people who aren't listed as reviewers who have probably done enough at this point that they should be reviewers, and maybe even like unpacked to approvers. So we just wanted to, make sure people get out of there. And then there's some other people that probably like aren't really active at all and haven't been in quite some time. And some of them have removed themselves, but some of them haven't. So we wanted to clean that up. And then my goal is to, by like the end of this week, have that PR issued and send it out to the SIG Apps mailing list, maybe SIG Architecture mailing list too. One of the general things they're kind of asking is that all the SIGs kind of go around and clean their stuff up. The SIG CLI has already kind of done this a little bit. They took a different approach where they, I think, removed everyone and said, add yourself back. I don't think our case is that extreme. We don't have like 50 or 60 people, so it's not that big of a deal, but that would be one thing to clean up. And then from there, I think it would be instructive to go through and then talk about the contributing guidelines and at least reference back out to like the process for reviewership and approvership and all that.
Sounds good. Okay. The other thing that I had to do with examples. I had forgotten that SIG Apps technically owns the examples repo, which is still around. There's a link to it in the meeting minutes. I need to open this up. It doesn't get a lot of activity, and there is an owners file in it with Sebastian and Ihor in it, although I have no idea what they're doing with it these days or much of anything. And there's only 3 officially supported examples, although there's a couple more in there with the examples repo. And we own this, and it is a place to help folks get on board with workloads. And I mean, right now it's not getting much activity or growth, and it isn't very well maintained. Does anyone have any ideas on how we should approach this? Or is anybody interested in doing something with this? All right. That's quite a bit of silence. Okay.
Well,
yeah.
So a lot of this looks like it links back into the documentation.
Yeah.
So these aren't too bad. I don't know. What would you want to do with it? Like, what are we looking to do here?
So when I look at this, I'm looking to say, is this something that we should get into a little bit better shape or help the docs folks, or do we hand it off to the docs folks? Should this be deprecated or kept around? Things like that. I mean, if I go look at, right into it. So for example, if you go into the PHP Redis example inside of Guestbook, it's using an entirely deprecated and probably insecure version of PHP. There's a lot of little nuances in here of this thing's not very well maintained. In fact, that's actually what caught my attention, was the entire lack of maintenance and practices in some of the things in here. And
so the things that I think are really wrong. So the maintenance is definitely a thing, but it looks like people are touching it, right? Like, I mean, at least the WordPress one got updated like 3 months ago.
Yeah, but if you go to
that's pretty.
Yeah. But I mean, if you actually go to the contributors page, you're going to see contributions have pretty much for the most part, died. It's almost like it's on life support if something needs to be touched.
Oh yeah, it's definitely on life support. But is the goal to update it so that we have better documentation on the website? Because I could come up with a list of things that in my mind need to be done here. Like MySQL, WordPress should be using stateful sets inside of the deployments. When they upgraded the example from replication controller to deployment, I guess we didn't even have stateful set at the time, so we were using pet set. So that would be like one thing. Redis should probably, there are better ways to run Redis. The Cassandra one looks okay. There are better ways to do a seed provider at this point though. So, I mean, we can come up with, one thing to start with might be coming up with a list of things that we desire from the examples, so that it's a little bit more actionable than to just ask people to go and kind of like fix them.
Yeah. So maybe that's a good first step, is to come up with, here's the tasks, because some of the labels we've got better labeling solutions for now, or documented labeling solutions. There's a whole bunch of little things in here that have changed over time, and this just was never updated.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'll say this, right? The quality of examples in the Kubernetes community there are many of them and not all of them are good, which leads to a lot of cargo culting and a lot of actual issues for people who start with an example thinking that, wow, I got it from the website. This is the right way to do it. And then probably doesn't get them too far. So like updating this stuff to like include pod disruption budgets would probably be a good thing. There's a lot of stuff we could do here to kind of have a little bit better of best practices.
Yeah, I find almost nobody uses pod disruption budget, and I think that's because every time I bring it up, they go, oh yeah, I forgot about that, because it's almost never talked about, and people have already had to do so many other little things to create numerous YAML files for their stuff that they forget about all of the things they can do. Or, even if it's horizontal pod auto scaling, I don't see that very often, even when it would be really useful. So, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like, we should probably figure out what we want them to look like and then go from there. I can hunt, if I don't do that, I can hunt somebody down to go do that.
You can hunt somebody down to do that? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else for general housekeeping stuff anyone wanted to talk about? Perfect. Then we'll get into the Sidecar API and test plan for this. Did somebody add this in, want to talk about what they wanted to chat about here?
Oh yeah, I just kind of put that there for reference to what I was talking about earlier. But if people want to have a look at it, that would be appreciated. Or if anyone has had a look at it and has any opinions on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We need to get it reviewed.
Yeah, just needs some more people to look at it, effectively.
All right. I'll take a look at that today and see if I've got any feedback for both of those.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Did anyone have anything else? Going once, going twice, going three times. All right, then we are ending early. Thanks everyone for coming. Have a wonderful week, and we'll be back here next week. Thanks.